Okay, so today what we're going to do is we're going to look at the financial calculator that's on the TI-83 calculator, and mine is a TI-83 Plus, but this will work the same with a TI-83. You'll see this purple button right here that says Apps. The calculator is already on, obviously. When I click on Apps, it gives me a variety of applications. For this one, we're going to select Finance. So we'll go down and hit Enter. And you'll see that it gives me a variety of options. The first one is the most important, which is the Tvm Solver, which means Time Value of Money Solver. So it solves pretty much any problem that you would do in Excel, or if you were adventurous enough to do it by hand, you could do it that way. So to enter the Time Value Money Solver, hit Enter again, and you'll see it gives us a variety of inputs, many of which are familiar for the concepts of the finance course or that you have been importing into Excel. N is the number of periods, so however many periods there are. If there are 5 years, then N would be 5. If there are 12 months, N would be 12. Just keep in mind whatever the period that you're using is. If you need to convert something like 2 years, but the interest is paid monthly, that you would have 24 periods and so on and so forth. So for this example, I'm going to leave the number of periods at 0, assuming in this problem I'm being asked to find the number of periods it takes for an amount that I'm going to invest today, and it grows at 1% interest. And I want to know how long is it going to take for that $10,000 to grow into $12,000. So similar problem to say, how long is it going to take my investment to double in value, or how long is it going to take for a savings account to reach a particular dollar value in years or in months. And so I've left the number of periods as 0. I'm assuming the interest rate is 1%, which is relatively average for today's savings and money market accounts. Present value is the $10,000 that I'm investing, and note that the present value is entered as a negative amount, and that is because I am going to be giving my money to the bank. So presently, I actually am out $10,000, and so I want to enter it as a negative sign. If I didn't enter it as a negative sign, then I'd end up with a calculation error, because the calculator realizes that I can't work with the function that way. Payment, I'm assuming that I'm not putting any additional money into the account, and so the payment is 0. And then future value is the amount that I want to receive in the future, so in this case, $12,000. The P divided by Y and the C divided by Y are typically not used in intro-level financial courses, and so in that case, I'm just going to leave them at their default value, which is 1. I can go into a more detailed course if you need to cover those types of topics, but for the purposes of this, you can always leave them as 1 unless told otherwise. The payment actually is an important concept here, and payment is whether the deposit in this case of $10,000 is made at the end of the first period or at the beginning of the first period. This has to do with annuities due versus ordinary annuities, and how long interest is going to be accrued for. If I said 5 years, but I make the deposit at the beginning of the 5 years, that is actually going to accrue more interest than it would at the end of 5 years if I had been making the deposits at the end of the period. So the default is end, meaning I'm making the deposit at the end of the period, and for my example, that's just fine. So now that you have all the inputs, which is primarily what the Tvm Solver is for, is to put your financial inputs in, you can go back to the Apps button, the purple button here, click on Finance once again, and this is where you want to ask yourself, what value am I trying to solve for? And as I mentioned, I want to know the number of periods. So in this case, I want to know the N, the number of periods it's going to take. So I'll use the down arrow here, go down to the number 5, and hit Enter. And you'll see it brings me back into the Time Value of Money Solver, but what it's done is it's taken the formula and it's put it onto the place where I had a 0 for the number of periods. Once that value has been added, I will hit enter once again, and lo and behold, it will take 18.32 years for a sum of $10,000 to grow into $12,000 if the interest rate is 1% and I make the deposit at the end of the first year. You can, assuming if you want to work the problem out the other way, let's say I was given the number of years and I want to know what interest rate does that correspond to. I can put a 0 here for the interest rate, and whenever you put it in, I always like to select what I'm going to be solving for. I like to use the over arrow to highlight it. I'll go back to the apps button, finance, hit enter. Okay, this time I'm looking for the interest rate. So I'll scroll down to the number 3, click enter again. You'll see it has put the time value of money I percentage into the value that I'm looking for, hit enter again, and of course we know that it's going to be a 1% interest rate because the formula that we solved for using that number of periods. I can do the same for present value, payment, future value, and so as long as I have 4 out of the 5 inputs here, I can solve pretty much any of the time value of money problems that may be presented to me in the course. If you need to exit out, you can go second quit. It'll take you back to the home page. Another thing you can do from here is, let's say I prefer to have this, clean screen. I can go into the apps, finance, and assuming that I've put all of my things into the time value of money solver, and I know the value or the part of the equation I'm looking for, let's say it was interest rate, I can select it and it will put the value that I'm searching for onto the home screen of the calculator. And if I hit enter again, it will display the value for the interest rate, which is 1%. So you don't need to necessarily be in the time value of money solver portion to get the different values that you're searching for. So that 1% corresponds to the same 1% that's on the home page. So if you're looking to simplify what you're looking at, you can do it on the home page, the main page of the calculator, but essentially either way will allow you to go through and solve the finance problems. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if there's anything else I can assist you with, please let me know. Have a good one.